Go cheese.
I don't feel that.
Fadal.
So the brother asked, from the brother from Blackburn, UK. He said he has the money to go make Hajj, but he's saving up to buy a house. And right now he's the most financially stable that he's ever been. And if he spends the money to go do the Hajj and he comes back, it's like he's starting over from scratch to try to buy the house. So what should he do?
Okay, طيب بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله أما بعد. Question is regarding a brother who wants to go make Hajj, and he also needs to buy a house or finish the purchases on a house, and right now he feels this is the most financially stable point of his life, and if he goes and make Hajj and he comes back, he's going to have to start from scratch. What should he do? طيب, it depends. And it depends on the offer of the house. If it's an offer which in most cases is going to slip him by, and it's a very important deal, or he's closing off the final payments, then perhaps we may say stay and then delay the Hajj, because the Hajj may not necessarily be a necessity or an obligation upon you if you don't have the extra money, the surplus money, the money that exceeds your day-to-day needs and necessities. That is, if the house and purchasing the house is a need and or a necessity. All right. As far as if it isn't a necessity, then we say make Hajj without a question. That's the pillar about Islam. And another way of answering the question is to say, is that perhaps when a person goes and makes Hajj, makes that spiritual sacrifice, he may come back and only Allah knows what will be the case regarding his house and what provision Allah Azza wa Jalla will send his way because of his spiritual sacrifice. And this is something which has been proven. This is proven. Many brothers, they go make Hajj and they come back and they become wealthy, or they get married, or they get accepted in the Islamic University of Medina. Many people, they come, they go make Hajj and their wife gets pregnant. The barakah of Hajj is proven. Umrah, the lesser Hajj, is I have my personal experiences. Things opened up for me just by going to make Umrah. All right? So visiting the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is something which is big league stuff. It's major. It's not a small, simple thing. You're traveling all of those miles and you're visiting the center of the Ummah of Islam, the Kaaba al-Musharrafa. That's major. And the du'as that you make at the Kaaba, at Safa and at Marwa, is major. All right? So it's not a small type of thing. So perhaps it's best for him to make the Hajj. Now one may say, if he makes a Hajj, how much money does he plan to spend on Hajj versus how much money is he going to pay for the house? Is he buying the house from scratch? Or as I said, is he finalizing a payment on the house? And we said 10,000 or 15,000 is going to be the final cornerstone. So it depends. Allah knows best.
Lutfi H, Queens, New York. Assalamu alaikum, beloved Sheikh, beloved and kind Sheikh. How can one go back to his ex-wife when idda ended but only first talaq?
Question says, how does one go back to one's wife after the idda is finished, after the first talaq? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah bless you, Brother Lutfi. And may Allah Azza wa Jalla always allow your face to be bright with a smile in this life and in the hereafter. Ameen. Once the idda period is finished, she has nothing to do with you. She's a new woman to you. So you get married to her like you would marry any other woman that you didn't know. There has to be a new contract, wali, witnesses, mahar, etc. Everything is from scratch. Everything is from scratch. And Allah knows best.
UW, London, UK. Assalamu alaikum. Is it better to refer to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as Nabi or Rasul? And is calling him only by his first name a form of polygamy?
Question comes from the UK. Referring to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Rasul or Prophet, what's better? And it's by calling him as Muhammad, belittling him, etc. There's no definite answer to none of the three scenarios. None of the three. Without a question, the Rasul is higher than Nabi. But Allah clearly affirms the fact that the Prophet ﷺ is a prophet. He's a Nabi. Okay, and he also affirms that he's a Rasul. So it depends on how it's being mentioned and how it's being used. Versus other prophets, versus other messengers by himself, it depends. He's both of them. And both of them are extremely honorific titles. Nabi and Rasul. Alright? As far as calling him Muhammad, then it depends on how you're talking. It depends on what you're saying. If you're addressing him to non-Muslims, that's one thing. Speaking hypothetically, that's one thing. If you're trying to prove something, this is what Muhammad said. It depends. There's no one standard answer to this question. All right? There's no one standard answer to the question. It depends on how you're talking. All right? When we talk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how do we say Allah's name? What do we say about Allah? What do we mention about Allah's name? It depends on what you're saying. It depends on what you're saying. All right? So I think that the questioner and all of us, we should always get out of the robotic thinking that it has to be like this. There is no gear. It's smooth, fluid movement. A khutbah is not like a class. A class is not like a khutbah. Writing a book to a non-Muslim is not like writing a book to a Muslim. It depends. It depends. And Allah knows best.
FA East Flanders, Belgium. Should I seek ilm and try to do dawah here, or should I try another place with less attack on Orthodox Muslims? And nifaq is like a sinking ship here. Also, which would Medina University require?
This question comes from Belgium. Should I seek knowledge and give dawah here, or should I go somewhere else where the environment is a bit more warm, more inviting, or more acceptable with regards to the Orthodox Islam, and is not as an onslaught and a crusade against Orthodox Islam? It seems like it's a sinking ship, etc. And also, what are the requirements of Medina? Like I just said, it depends. But at the end of the day, everyone can't run. Everyone can't fight. And sometimes you have to know when to run away and when to relocate. But that doesn't mean that every situation you retreat and you run away because it's a sinking ship. All right? So someone has to eventually try to get the water off the boat and stop the leak. Eventually, someone has to sacrifice themselves. Someone has to sacrifice their comfort or their freedom to establish something there. So if everyone there is on some other unorthodox type of understanding and practice of Islam, and they're all appeasing the kuffar and watering down Islam and trying to get the wealth and the protection of the kuffar, etc., someone has to stand firm. And obviously the one who stands firm is the one that have to sacrifice. He's the one that has to sacrifice, and he may have to suffer a bit. But his reward is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah clearly tells us that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had a good example in the previous prophets and messengers who were denied, who were rejected, who were made fun of. Some of them were killed. And they were patient. So someone has to do it, all right? If you know that you don't have the ability, and Allah knows best what you do or do not have the ability, if you feel strongly that it's too difficult for you at this stage, and you can do more in another country or another city, then perhaps that's best for you. But never ever forget your home country or your home city. Always go back and visit. Always contact people there. Sow the seeds. 10, 20, 30, 40 years. The trees will begin to grow. All right? So don't 100% abandon your people, no matter how difficult the situation is. And you look at other parts of the world today, and Europe, let's say the UK. You think the UK was always like that? Of course it wasn't always like that. Someone had to be the pioneer. Someone had to suffer. Someone had to sacrifice to establish it. All right? As far as the requirements of Medina, then the first requirement is sincerity to Allah. And the second requirement is that you have to be hardworking. Before you get into paperwork and letter of recommendation, you got to be sincere. And you got to really want it. And not just talk about it, but you got to really want it. Because most people, they say they want to go, but they really don't go. They're not willing to sacrifice for it, like I said. Most people that I've come across in my life, they say they want to go, they ask for a letter of recommendation, teach me, do this, but they eventually don't go. All right? So you got to be sincere, you got to be hardworking. And inshallah ta'ala, the technical things are well known on the website. You go to the website and you get all the information that you need. Alhamdulillah, there's a big support group that they have now. And things are totally different than how they were back then when you had to apply in person. You had to do things the analog way. It wasn't no digital stuff. Everything is electronic now. So go to the website with your degree, your birth certificate, your paperwork, and you'll find all the requirements there. And Allah knows best.
M.A. Bronx, New York. What you feel is the strongest view about Khidr being a prophet?
Questions from said Brownsville,
Bronx.
Bronx, the Bronx, New York. What do you feel about Khidr being a prophet? Wallahi, it's a valid argument. It's a valid argument. What makes a person a prophet? It's a valid argument. It's a valid argument. Ibn Hajar rahimahullah ta'ala and others, they clearly support the view, or they mention the argument that Khidr was a Nabi. And by saying he was a Nabi, it eliminates and alleviates us of many problematic issues. And Allah surely knows best.
AF, London, UK. If a parent has money or land and he wants to give it all to his children, is it an obligation to split it equally?
Question comes from where again?
Toronto.
From Toronto.
London, UK.
London. If a person has land and they want to give it to their children, do they have to split it up equally? It depends. A gift, a nafaqah, support, financial maintenance versus inheritance. If someone is sick and dying and they give a big, large gift, that's a huge chunk of wealth. That's not necessarily the proper way of doing things. You're about to die. You give it to this one or that one, when you're supposed to be separated as inheritance. As far as maintenance for people to live on and build on, then that's a different story. Some children don't deserve more than others. He may have a family. He may have a job. He may be working hard. This one isn't working. As far as just a shared gift, then equality has to be there. And Allah knows best. You gotta the screen. You gotta take the screen shut off thing. Make it It's gonna keep doing that. It's like 30 seconds. Photo.
NM, UK. I want to pray Tahajjud. However, when I pray Tahajjud in particular, I get very anxious. Makes it hard to feel close to Allah and stand for long, and it puts me off praying it. How can I stop this?
Person feeling anxiety when they pray tahajjud. Sabr. Realize who you're standing in front of. And realize why you're making tahajjud. Bidnillahi ta'ala. Practice makes perfect.
AA, Miami, Florida. Assalamu alaikum mufti. Concerning the ruling of taking the disbelievers as awliya, can a person maintain a tight relationship with the best friends that he had prior to accepting Islam?
I'm from Miami.
Yep.
With regards to taking the disbelievers as friends and intimate companions, can a person keep a close relationship with his previous friends and colleagues before he accepted Islam from school, etc.? No and yes. No, they are not your friends, and they are not allowed to be treated as your friends. The yes part, you keep in relations with them to call them to Islam and to invite them to your way of life. You keep in relations with them. You may owe them something. They did a lot of things for you back in the day. Took care of you, looked after you. You pay back the basic good treatment. But them being your buddies and your friends, and they feel that this person is my close buddy, that's problematic. And even if they feel that, because many people may feel Fulan is my best friend, but it doesn't mean that he feels the same way. That can't be your close friends. You see them, you talk to them, hey, what's up? What's going on? All right, you bust it up, so on and so forth. Remember that? Back in the day, we used to do this. You talk about the football game, the Patriots want to blow out the Rams, blah, 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 blah. That's normal, cordial speech. But someone being your close friend, entering your home, eating your food, you tell them secrets, they tell you secrets. You trust them, you rely upon them, things like this. That's only befitting of a pious Muslim. That's only befitting of a pious Muslim. So oftentimes it's a word game. We say friends or close friends, but it's nothing more than an associate. Or you may say, this is an old friend. Back then. Not necessarily what? Now. But it doesn't mean we see a non-Muslim from the days before you were Muslim that you have to spit in their face and curse them and doom them to the fire of hell. You speak to them, how you doing? You never know when a person may become a Muslim. You never know. Allah knows best.
NH, Toronto, Canada. Assalamu alaikum. Is the hadith on on Allah forgiving everyone on the 15th of Shaban except two people who are arguing authentic?
Question comes from Canada regarding the 15th of Sha'ban and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgiving everyone except for people who are arguing. The ulama of Islam, they differ on that issue, and that what seems to be apparent and Allah knows best is that all those hadiths regarding the middle of Sha'ban are not authentic. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
HA, London, UK. May Allah bless you, Sheikh. Do women get the multiplied reward for praying in congregation in the masjid like men do?
Question is, do women get the multiplied reward for praying in the masjid like men do? Inshallah ta'ala, they get the multiplied reward. The Prophet ﷺ didn't specify, and just because the jama'ah is obligatory upon men and not upon women does not mean that they do not get the reward. Rather, the ulama of Islam, they say, those who hold the view that Salat al-Jama'ah is a sunnah, it's not obligatory, they affirm the reward. So if it's not obligatory upon men, of course it's not obligatory upon women, but they still affirm 25 or 27 levels higher. So bi'idhnillah ta'ala, they get the reward like men, inshallah.
HH, Toronto, Canada. What's the HadithDisciple water shake for this year? Have we moved away from Fiji water?
And this question is from where?
Toronto, Canada.
From Toronto, Canada. What's the official water of HadithDisciple? Have we moved away from Fiji or this year? I still drink Fiji. We still drink Fiji. Obviously, we haven't had Fiji in a long time. And to be honest, my aqidah regarding Fiji has been shaken. I had some shubuhat, some doubtful affairs. Okay, I still believe in it, but not as what
Not as strong.
my man has when it comes to Fiji. And I would say if I had to pick a HadithDisciple water, but the problem is why we don't have it on the live stream here because I don't see anywhere that sells it close by. Maybe we can find another place in New York. Is the volcanic water, the Hawaiian volcanic spring water. It's really good, and to me it tastes 10 times better than Fiji and the other Evian, the ones that we used to drink. Inshallah, I'll try to bring one to show you guys. Maybe they can get it for us in Canada as well. It's different brands, but I think they're superior. Wallahu alam.
SA, London, UK. What is the ruling on supporting soccer/basketball teams, buying their jerseys and going to matches as a practicing Muslim who fears Allah and seeks knowledge? Is that adi?
Question come from the UK on supporting football matches, soccer matches, things like this, buying their jerseys, going to games, etc. As far as buying the jersey, then some of the people of knowledge have given fatwa that you are not allowed to wear these jerseys upon which are the names of kuffar and or upon which the names of sinful Muslims. And for argument's sake, there's a pious Muslim who prays, who doesn't support alcohol, things like this. You may have his name on a jersey. Tight, perhaps. But the vast majority of the people are going to be non-Muslims or sinful, heedless Muslims. That's sports. So many ulama, some ulama, they've passed fatwa regarding this is impermissible. And it's a means of showing wala to them, loving them, imitating them, being soft towards them. Let alone what some of the jerseys may include of symbols and icons, regardless whether it's a symbol of religion or not, but it's a symbol and icon of other than Islam. One day when I was in Medina, I think I told the story before, I was going to visit a sheikh one day, and as I was crossing the street with a bunch of kids, they were laughing at me, and they were making fun of me from across the street, some Saudi kids. So they started making fun of my thobe. They said, your thobe is short, your thobe is short, thobe qasir, thobe qasir. You got on a short thobe, where's the rest of your thobe at? In the Prophet city. So I was ticked off just a bit. Not super ticked off, but I said, all right, let me show them a lesson now. So I walked over towards them. So they didn't think I was going to come, actually engage them. So I gave them salams, and I said, what are you guys laughing at? What's so funny? So they say, you look at your thobe. Where's the rest of your thobe? Why is your thobe so short? So I pointed to one of them wearing a soccer jersey. I said, you got a cross on your shirt. You have a crucifix. Are you a Christian? Alhamdulillah, astaghfirullah. I said, you laughing at me for implementing the sunnah? You're wearing a symbol of Christians who hate Muslims and who hate everything about you, your life, your culture, your background, and your lineage in your country. So the little boy, he shut up. He wasn't that little, but he wasn't super grown, all right? And he closed his mouth. So the point proving that people, they wear these different icons and jerseys, and half the time they don't even know what's on it, of kufr and shirk. So that's another reason why those jerseys are problematic. If it doesn't have a symbol of kufr, it doesn't have the name of a non-Muslim, then perhaps it's permissible to wear it. Whereas if you buy other clothes, designer clothes, you may be supporting homosexuals, as we said. Or you may be supporting people that bomb our brothers in Palestine. Non-Muslim companies, what do you want to do? You can't have a car, you can't drink coffee, you can't wear shoes, you can't have a watch. That all come from non-Muslims, support mushriks, Buddhists who kill Muslims in Tibet and Nepal. It never stops, yani. So we don't make the halal haram. All right, we don't make the halal haram. As far as supporting them and rallying after them, that's a problem. فَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ سَاهُونَ. Not praying on time, forgetting about your prayers, sitting in the stadium and not praying, that's a problem. All right, the association of alcohol and different things that are associated with sports. At the end of the day, like we said on Freshly Grounded podcast and other times, you have to be real with yourself. And you have to look at your practice. Some people, they may go to a soccer game to blow off steam, to recreate energy, to get away from the other things that are haram that they're avoiding, which is a great struggle to get off of. You know how hard it was for me to stop drinking alcohol and smoking weed and going to the club and not get tattoos and not having a girlfriend? You know how difficult it was? And now you're telling me you can't watch a football game. You can't watch the Super Bowl. You can't talk about the Patriots
The Rams.
steamrolling the Rams. You see what I'm saying to you? I may be trying to wean myself off of what? Major haram stuff. That's clearly haram. So you have to be mindful. If you have a problem going to the soccer game, don't go. Because of women, because of homosexuals, because of music, because of alcohol, don't go. Don't go. There's clearly several issues involved in the game. Going there, don't go. But some people, them going to a soccer match is 10 times better than what they used to do. And the whole wisdom, if we're not saying that it's permissible to do haram or smoke weed instead of crack cocaine. No, we're not saying that. We're not saying that. We're saying that there are many of us who cannot avoid everything. We can't avoid every blow. So it's best to take a blow which is permissible, but maybe doubtful, or permissible, but have some other problematic issues, than something which is clearly haram, let alone something which is what? Of course. If you had to pick one of the two. So that's the only thing that we're trying to say. And Allah knows best.
AA in Miami, Florida. In the event when one combines Dhuhr or Nasr, not traveling, how does he make up the Sunnah prayers?
If you combine Dhuhr and Asr and you're not traveling, how do you make up the Sunnah prayers? Make them up. If you normally would make them. If you would normally make them, then make them up another time, inshallah. Make them up another time. And the reason why you combine has nothing to do with traveling, as you just mentioned in the question. Wallahu alam.
Amsterdam, the Netherlands, NM. Is it permissible to do taqleed in Aqidah as whole or only certain branches? If yes, which branches?
Question comes from Denmark regarding making taqleed in Aqidah. Is it permissible? If so, what branches, etc.? If my memory serves me correctly, Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen, rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentioned an explanation of a poem on Usul al-Fiqh, that many people say that taqleed is permissible except in Aqidah. And if my memory serves me correct, it's been years since I read this. The Shaykh rahimahullah, he said that this is a double standard. Either taqleed is haram or halal. One of the two. Something that they're unsure of in the deen, or it's totally haram. So people, they say you can't make no taqleed in Aqidah. Is that even possible for someone who isn't learned, for someone who can't read and study him or herself? Is that even possible? Do you know the proof for every single point of Aqidah of Ahlul Sunnah? Do you know the dilala of every hadith that you know about the Aqidah of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah? Not necessarily. At the end of the day, one should try his or her best to learn the proof and evidence and to understand the proof and evidence the best way you can. That's what you should do. The ulama of Islam, they differ on the ruling of taqleed. And some ulama, such as Ibn Hazm the Great, rahimahullah, and many others, they hold the view that taqleed is absolutely haram and it cannot be done. Even a general layman Muslim has to try his best to understand what Allah wants from him. And they have a very strong argument concerning that. Wallahu alam. Obviously, you're not going to make taqleed in the foundations of the things which the Salaf agreed on concerning Aqidah. The major points, of course. You have to know what Allah says about not making shirk. What Allah says about Him being above the throne. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about this and about that, which is the clearly established point of Aqidah. As far as the subtleties, this issue, this fara, this branch, that's a different story. But before we even go that far, why is there a need for a person to make taqleed in those issues? Does a Muslim who's of that basic level need to know that? Do they even get exposed to those subtleties of Aqidah? Should they even be exposed to that? Or should they be taught the general concept of the correct Aqidah, the general points with the proofs? So that's a huge problem. And this is one of the sloppiest issues that you find among the Western da'is with this issue of Aqidah. Aqidah first, no question about that, but it doesn't mean forever, and that's the only thing that you talk about and called to. Aqidah first. That doesn't mean that you only focus on one shade of Aqidah and neglect 20 other aspects of Aqidah, such as the rise and fall of Al-Iman. It's not just Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah or Asma wa Sifat. Al-Kufr bi-Taghut is from the most important aspects of Aqidah. That's the foundation of the Aqidah. That is the backbone, the vertebrae of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab's legacy. Is al-bara'atu min ash-shirki wa ahlihi. Is being free from shirk and his people. How many people who call themselves Salafi and say that they're following Muhammad Abdul Wahhab's revival of the deen quote that? When was the last time you heard al-khutbah or read a book about al-kufr bi-taghut? Rejecting the taghut, hating the taghut, disassociating yourselves from the people of taghut, of kufr and shirk. When was the last time you heard it? How often do you hear this? And that is, we said, that's the alternator of the engine of Aqidah. Not the battery, not that is the thing that makes the whole thing move and stay running. That's the foundation of Ibn Abdul Wahhab's call. And if you read his books, from Usul al-Thalatha to the largest of his works, he's talking about that. One aspect or another is freeing yourself from the people of kufr and shirk. And that's what his disciples were upon. No one talks about that. So, starting with Aqidah doesn't mean only Aqidah. Starting with Aqidah doesn't mean neglecting the other aspects of Islam. Teaching Aqidah doesn't mean only half of or a third of the Aqidah. It's a huge problem. Huge problem. And many people, they think that they're guided and they think that they're on the path. They think that they think that they're following the way to Salaf and Aqidah. And they don't even realize that they're only scratching the surface. They're only following one small piece. And the 20% of the Orthodox, 80% they're following a modern day scholar. They are following the ijtihad of a modern day alim. They don't even realize that. So it's very, very sad, very sad. It's a very sad issue, very sad problem, major problem. And one of the reasons behind this is not looking in the political atmosphere and environment that the Muslims live today. If you want to know the pure teachings of the Aqidah, then read the books of the early ulama. All right? And you'll find a difference. I guarantee you'll find a difference between what the people say today and what you find in the actual speech of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab and the letters that he wrote and his students and the views that they took against those people in Arabia night and day, because it was different then. Things were different then. And before Ibn Abdul Wahhab, things were even more different. And Allah knows best.
AS, Watford, UK. Where can we get a fresh beanie like yours, Mufti?
Tayyip, Watford, UK. I think I got this in, I'm not sure, in Philly or maybe in the UK. We bought a few of these in the UK. They have them. They had them in a bookstore in Birmingham. I think you can go online and call it Haji caps. I think you Google Haji caps. Haji caps. You should be able to find them. Different colors, or as you say, flavors. So, bidnillah ta'ala, and if I see you in person, inshallah, I'll give you this one. Bidnillah. Jazakallah khairan.
IK, Mississauga, Ontario. What are the pros/cons of living in NYC as a Muslim?
Question from Mississauga. Pros and cons of living in New York City as a Muslim. That's a long topic. I mean, there are many pros. Alhamdulillah, there are abundant Muslims here. Abundant masjids. You have bookstores. You have halal, grocery stores, supermarkets. Alhamdulillah. You have, people with some knowledge. Alhamdulillah. You have some people with finances, trying to make moves, do things. Janazah project, for example. Alhamdulillah, things like this. Okay? I believe, they have schools. There are many advantages. Disadvantages, I mean, my view is always going to be biased. Me coming from a place in a city like Philadelphia, which has such a strong Islamic and Muslim current, super strong, so many different aspects and levels. All right, so it's always going to be different. You look how many Muslims in New York City. Where are they? When do you see them? And I've been in New York City for some years now, and you can get on a train or a plane or the bus or drive around, and it can be, as they say in the UK, it can be hard pressed to find somebody wearing a thobe and a beard. Hard pressed. But so many people here are Muslims. And I'm not saying that you have to wear a thobe, as we've discussed that. No idiot can come and say, you're forcing Arab culture upon the people. No, I'm an idiot. Because we never ever what? Said that. Ever. We never promoted that you have to wear a thobe. Okay? That it's obligatory. Promoting it as something that's a mandatory. Being virtuous, having its benefits, yes. But we never ever said that you have to. And we never said that you have to wear a thobe. You can wear a Malaysian izar or a Nigerian garb. Doesn't have to be Arabian or Saudi style. I'm wearing a Saudi style because I lived there for 10 years of my life. Common sense. Doesn't mean that. It has to be a Saudi. What am I with my hat? Is this from Saudi? No, it's not. My vest, it's not. So the people who lack intelligence, who just have to find a reason to hate, which is a good thing, alhamdulillah. If that's the only thing that you can say about the video, why are the brothers working out in thobes or why are you wearing the Arab clothes, that's a good thing. If that's the only point that they can bring up, alhamdulillah. So at the end of the day, the point I'm trying to make is, you have so many different Muslims, but oftentimes you can barely find them. Not all the times, but oftentimes, I said. It's not strange if you go to certain places in New York, people look at you funny. Right here in this neighborhood. You walk down the street, people will look at you funny. Place like Philadelphia, other places, very rare. Very rare. You may have non-Muslims come up to you asking, yo, where you get that from? I need to buy my boyfriend one. Or my girlfriend, she needs a kimar. People making zina. A'udhu billah. But the concept of Islam and Muslims and not being afraid and hiding is what? Is there. So that's a responsibility upon the inhabitants here, all of us, to try to improve and enhance. And there are many other issues as well. Many things in which the brothers have to do a better job. The sisters have to do a better job in spreading. And obviously New York is different. Queens is not like Brooklyn. Brooklyn is not like Manhattan. Different boroughs, different cities, of course, things are different. It depends on how you look at it. Wallahu alam.
Let's say Ontario, Canada. Can you give a practical example of zuhud in terms of food/eating?
Giving a practical example of zuhud in terms of food/eating. Overeating. Perfect example. Zuhud doesn't mean that you starve yourself. Nor does zuhud mean that you eat food which is of very poor quality. But it means that you don't do the things that you don't need to do. And of course, there are levels of zuhud. A person may say, all I want to eat is beans and bread. That suffices my stomach. Alhamdulillah, that's more than enough for me. Tayyib. Another person, he may say, I want to have lamb chops and rice. But I'm not going to have a huge platter all to myself, but a small bowl. I'm sufficing myself. It's quality food, but I'm not gorging and stuffing my face. That's zuhud. Let alone the fact that if you have lamb chops and rice, whatever you have for dinner, that's nothing compared to what other people have for dinner. And alhamdulillah, we've met rich people before, wealthy people before, overseas and here in the United States. You go to some of their table spreads, you see what they eat. You see I have animals, literally, without any exaggeration, not meat, animals on their table. On this platter is an animal, a goat, and another one is another sheep, and there's a half of a camel or a whole camel. And that's their lunch. And it's only 5 people in the hotel room. 5 people in the hotel room. That's their food. The rest gets thrown and tossed out. Okay? I had a friend, I believe I told the story before, he worked at a marriage hall. And this was in the, the rough days of Medina. We were like, starving. He worked in a marriage hall, and every Saturday night, he would bring a huge, gigantic bag full of lamb and rice to my house and give it to me, fresh. It was the leftover stuff in the pots that the people weren't going to serve anymore. They want to toss away. So there's levels of zuhd. So a practical level of zuhd could be to eat what you need to eat. Doesn't mean you have to starve yourself. Or a different level, a person says, I only want to eat beans and bread. That's enough for me. I'm not begging. I have the money. I'm not poor saying I want to practice zuhud. That's another difference. Many people, they make the mistake. A person doesn't have money and say, I want to be an ascetic. I don't want to. No, you just don't have the money to buy it. And the moment you get a chance to beg, or the moment you get a chance to get it, you'll do it. Someone who has the money to buy meat and says, I'll eat bread and beans, that's sufficient. And if I'm invited somewhere and I have the finest lamb, alhamdulillah. So it's different levels of what? Of zuhd. Zuhd does not mean having poor quality stuff. All right, you may have an expensive car because it's a quality car. It doesn't mean that it's what? Extravagant. And that's another concept, extravagance, zuhd. This is a long discussion. Go back to the playlist of Sahih Muslim, Kitab al-Raqa'iq wa Zuhd, the summarized version of Sahih Muslim. Practical version is what I just gave you. And Allah knows best.
CW, Jonesboro, Georgia. Assalamu alaikum mufti. What advice can you give a single mother to help her son navigate through puberty?
A question comes from Jonesboro, Georgia. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. The advice that I would give you regarding a single mother or single parent raising a son in puberty. There's many advices. The first advice or piece of advice is that he must have a positive male role model in his life. And you must realize that you cannot do it by yourself. If his father's not around, he's dead or incarcerated, or he left you, or he's a deadbeat, unfortunately, no problem. He has to have an uncle or an older brother or a brother at the masjid. Someone has to be a positive role model in his life. And of course, that positive role model should be Muslim, starting off. And he should have other role models in his life or mentors, positive people around him, even if they're not Muslim. People that have experience and can tell him about life and what to do and how to develop his mind and his body as a man, how to make it and survive as a bare necessity, let alone be something, perhaps. But you cannot do it by yourself, sister. And many women, unfortunately, they make that mistake. Sometimes it's the only option that they have. Sometimes. And they do the best that they can. May Allah reward them for that. But sometimes women, they stubbornly and obstinately say, I can raise my son. I don't need a man. I don't need a husband. I can do my. That's not true. You cannot do it. And you buying him expensive clothes and buying him all the video games, that is not raising a man. That's raising a sissy and a wimp. That's raising a brat. You spoil him with those material possessions. And the moment he doesn't get those spoiled possessions, he acts like a baby. The moment he can't get those material possessions, he goes to crime. The moment he can't get those material possessions, he disrespects you and hollers at you. That's not raising a man. Spoiling your child is not raising a man. Raising a man sometimes is about not buying stuff for him and say, go out and work. Everyone understand this? So, when I was younger, as I told the famous story, my life growing up as a child, it wasn't always perfect. I had my bumps, my trials, my tribulations. And I told you the time when I got beat up by a group of kids. I was young. I ran home crying. My homie, she locked the door. She said, what's the matter? I said, they beat me up. She said, okay. She locked the door. Go out and learn how to fight. Not, oh, come here, what's the matter? They hit my baby. Who hit my son? Who hit my baby? There's many women, they do this. Who hit my son? Nah, you have to raise them how to be rough and tough. Raise them with respect. Raise them how to work and to appreciate and to value material possessions. You want a console? You want these expensive sneakers? No problem. I'll buy them for you. But you got to work for them. You got to memorize. You got to do really good in school. Instill in him the value of $1. What it means to be truthful, to be honest. What it means to be hardworking. Instill in him these values. And if you can't do it, then someone else has to do it. So, inshallah ta'ala, seek Allah's help and putting him in an environment of at least one positive brother. All it takes is one. One good brother to influence him, inshallah, and put him on the right path. And what's important is, no matter how hard you try, you are not a man. You cannot be a man. You were never meant to be a man. And a man, he must have touch. He has to be in touch with his sensitive side, emotional side, because that's another extreme. Being too harsh on your son, a man or a woman, in which they may grow up to be a narcissist, or they may grow up to be totally insensitive to anything. But it can't be something which you just pamper the boy. And he's around women and girls all day, every day. It's a problem. And many sisters, they make this mistake and they think that they know better than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah created Adam first, then Eve. Allah made Eve from Adam. The The father is pivotal to girls as well. A father can't just raise daughters. A woman can't just raise girls. You need a man. A man's voice is not like a woman's voice. Just like how women can hear babies cry, and they have the patience upon the baby and changing the baby and nursing the baby. The husband's ears are popping. Women, they can just sit there and hear the crying like it's nothing. They have different bodies. And the same applies to a man being there, a man's voice. Sit down, stop, don't do this. Authority in the household, it makes a huge difference. It makes a huge difference. So that's my advice in brief. And with the law is all success.
MH Singapore, what is the ruling of eating food that is halal but is in the shape of an animal that is haram to eat? For example, a chocolate which is the shape of a pig.
Question comes from Singapore. What is the ruling on eating a halal meal or halal food in the shape of a halal animal? Chocolate in the shape of a pig. Me personally, and this is my own personal opinion, I can't imagine eating anything associated with a pig. Anything. 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 The name, the shape, the color, candy, anything. If there was a halal hot dog and a piece of bread and call it a pig in a blanket, I wouldn't eat it. It's just disgusting. The thought of oink. I just don't see. It's just nasty. Eating a piece of chocolate in the shape of a pig, it's disgusting. I can't see, I don't see how a Muslim would desire that. But argument's sake, if it's chocolate, it's chocolate, it's halal. Just because it's a pig don't mean it's not actually a pig. It's halal, inshallah. But why would you even do that? And Allah knows best.
SA, Ottawa, Canada. If you come in Salah late and the Imam is in Tashahhud, do you say the Tashahhud or just do Tasbih?
Just do tasbih, inshallah.
AT, Toronto, Canada. Assalamu alaikum. If we know of brothers in the Dawah scene who are leading on sisters and causing harm, are we allowed to expose these brothers or what should we do?
Question is from where?
Toronto, Canada.
And the initials are?
AT.
AT. Right. So we have brothers who are on the Dawah scene, but they're hitting on sisters and abusing their power, basically, right? Is it permissible to expose them? It's a well-known culture. Some of us call it the culture of the predator sheikh. A predator sheikh. A sheikh who's a what?
Predator.
A predator. He's looking to pounce on some prey, unfortunately. At the end of the day, it depends on what type of harm they're doing. If you have the ability to give them advice and they'll stop and listen, alhamdulillah. If they won't stop, they won't take the advice, and they're going to keep misleading people and manipulating women and so on and so forth. And the only way that you can stop the sisters from being abused and stop the brothers from abusing the sisters, you want to help both out, is by exposing them, then do that. Put your trust in Allah. However, don't forget, don't throw rocks if you live in a glass house. You may start exposing someone, and then they'll flip it on you and start exposing you. Or you may expose someone, and this is the reality, you may expose somebody only because of your own personal problems. And many women, they have done this, and sisters, they have done this. They were mistreated, and now they just want to get revenge. And they don't actually want to stop it, or they don't necessarily want to help their brothers. They just want to get revenge for them being, that's not right. That could be a reason behind you doing it, but your intention has to be sincere. And if not, it may come back to haunt you. All right, so make sure you have the proper intention of exposing someone, and make sure that you're living a proper life. Or, for argument's sake, I know many brothers and sisters, they're not that righteous. And they'll tell you that they're not that righteous. They'll tell you that. I have my problems, I do what I do, but I know that you're faking the funk. And I'm not walking around with this big long beard and this big long dress and quoting Imam Fulan and Sheikh Fulan and Sheikh Fulan, and you are. You saw me in the club. I have no shame saying I was in the club, but you do. Alhamdulillah for that. But some people, they may be acting really pious. They try to expose someone, and then their dirty laundry is aired out. Then what? And then it multiplies. Another very important part of this answer is sisters have to be honest with themselves. I'm not talking about all sisters, but I know for sure there are some sisters who are victims of themselves. They victimize themselves. And this may be politically incorrect. Sisters may get upset, but I don't care. I'm going to say what I feel is the truth by the permission of Allah. Some sisters, they set themselves up. They get on the roller coaster, they get on a ride, and when they're tossed off, then they say, ouch. But they knew it was a roller coaster. They knew it was a ride. They knew that this guy was this celebrity. They knew that he was dipping and dabbing. They knew that he really didn't want anything from them except to get married and have sex with them. And then discard them. Talaq. I send you the talaq in a text message a week later or 2 weeks later after he had sex with you. Gave you nothing, didn't give you your mahar, didn't give you your rights. What did you think you were getting out of him? What type of quality did you think you were getting out of this brother? You're talking to him, you're doing this with him. What do you think you're getting? So sometimes sisters, they play themselves. And as the truth is to be said. We're not here to boo-hoo with anybody, man or woman. They play themselves, all right? If you want to marry this brother, you tell him that you want to marry him. You want to study with him, you want to study with him. You want to, be a groupie? You want to just be accepted? You want to just say, oh, I married him. Look, everybody, I married brother Fulan, I'm overseas, I'm doing this. Then perhaps that's what you get. Everyone understand this? So Allah gave you a brain. He gave you common sense. You can't use common sense to see that his brother isn't right. Even though he's a speaker and a caller, you don't have enough common sense to see that he's a trickster. That he has no intention of marrying you. He has no intention of providing for you or doing whatever he can. He has no intention for that. You can't see that. So sometimes the sisters, they play themselves. And then after it wears off and the fun is gone, then they cry. And they say, I've been victimized. And it's a witch hunt. Don't do that. Don't what? Don't do that. If there's a brother who's a knowledgeable brother, he has ilm and you want to marry him, there's nothing wrong with that. You asking him or you presenting yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. In the proper way, in a respectable, honorable way, there's nothing wrong with that. We're compatible. Let's try. We're incompatible. Qadr Allah. It's simple. But you're just being abused and played around with and manipulated. And that's all it is. And you think that it's cool and fun until it's no longer cool and fun. Don't do that. And obviously the brothers, of course, goes without saying, they have to fear Allah. Do you want someone to do that to your sister? You want someone to just use your sister as some type of sex doll? Are you going to abuse the power that Allah gave you? Allah gave you some type of knowledge. Allah is best how much knowledge you actually have. The land of the blind, the one-eyed man is what? It's king. You really don't have that much knowledge. You barely graduated, barely studied overseas. You got on the toll. I don't really have no ilm like that. You're abusing the power that Allah gave you. It's okay. Know for sure that a time will come in which someone's going to abuse your daughter and take advantage of your daughter and toss and discard her. And then you're going to see what it feels like. So you have to fear Allah. Do not use your knowledge for worldly gain. Do not use your ilm for dunya. Using your knowledge and the people financially compensate you for that, alhamdulillah. A sister wants to marry you and be your wife and you actually are her husband, alhamdulillah. There's nothing wrong with that. It's from the benefits of this. But you abusing your power, that's a different story. And Allah knows best. May Allah protect and help us all.
SA, Ottawa, Canada. How does a practicing sister keep in contact with an absent father in adulthood? What constitutes as having good akhlaq with parents when rights have been abandoned?
Inshallah, we're going to stop our Q&A here tonight. Inshallah, I'll take this question hopefully in the next session. Jazakumullah khairan. Allah Azza wa Jal surely knows that